Hello and welcome to the screencast for Psych 120 Introduction to the Psychology Major about the Resume and Curriculum Vitae badge assignment. My name is Dr. Eric Landrum in the Department of Psychology here at Boise State University, and I want to have this screencast really just to kind of walk you through the assignment, and actually I have a little PowerPoint that goes along with it to provide a little bit more context and details about why the decision is so important, as well as give you a little bit of advice, really whether you want it or not, quite honestly, about the grad school route versus the good job with a bachelor's degree route. So anyway, here we go. So you can see on the screen that this assignment really has an option. You can either do a resume or a curriculum vitae, and I hope by the end of the screencast you'll actually know the difference between the two. You can see that I've provided a handful of reference materials for you in addition to a chapter reading assignment in your textbook. And so I've written a couple of them from different sources. One is from our Boise State Career Center, which is quite good. And so here are the resources for you. Here's the badge. The assignment instructions go like this. So you're going to decide whether or not you need a resume. So basically a resume would be for the good job with a bachelor's degree route, and a curriculum vitae, or abbreviated CV. A CV would be for the graduate school route. Although, quite honestly, those are kind of fuzzy boundaries, and I've seen a CV for a job, I've seen a resume for grad school. So they have different labels, but their functions may not be completely separate from one another. So you're going to figure that out first, and then you're going to tell me about that decision. Then you're going to either read Chapter 4 if you want the resume route, or Chapter 6 if you're going to go the CV route in your textbook. Hopefully you'll review the materials available, including the files that I listed up here, watch the screencast for creating an effective resume or CV, and then you're actually going to do a practice version. You're going to prepare a current CV for you or a resume using Microsoft Word. You're going to upload it to Blackboard. Okay? And so the submission and grading details, as is our tradition with these, it's very structured. You're going to submit the text, part 1, like why you chose which route, under 2, assignment submission. So you know what that is, right? So when you go to actually submit your assignment, you're going to click on this guy right here, Resume CV. This new window opens up. All this information is repeated, but when you go to answer part 1, decide for resume and why, that's the why piece. You're going to actually go and you're going to do assignment 2, assignment submission, type submission. You're going to type your answer here. Typing my answer here. And then you're going to do that, but then also you're going to attach your resume. And you guys know how to do that. You do like that. Okay? So you hit attach file, and then you're going to hit submit. There it is, submit. By the way, I'm just going to take this out of here. So, while we're here, and I don't know, I'm not mentioning this on every video. If you use save as draft, that's fine. You can come back to it, but it's not submitted. So be sure to submit everything before the end of the semester. All right. So I'm going to actually go to a different screen rather than looking at the preview upload. So let's go back to our resume CV assignment. So you're going to here we were. So you're going to use the assignment submission for your answer to number 1 up here, part 1. For part 4, which is the actual CV, you're just going to upload it either Psych 120, then either resume or CV, then your first name or last name, and then a doc file, a docx file that I can open in Microsoft Word. To grade your work, here's the rubric. Here I'm going to use the following criteria. Did you briefly describe? Did you do part 1? And did you complete and submit an appropriate CV or resume document prepared in Word that I can open, that you followed the file name structure, and you used advice from the screencast, and that's going to be coming later in this screencast, such as action verbs. And again, when this is done, I'll post the YouTube link here, and you can look at it anytime during the semester. All right, so that's the assignment as a brief overview. Let's take a peek at some more of the details of that. Okay, so I've just got a couple notes here. that I want to go over with you regarding the resume or curriculum vitae assignment. You may have seen this in another screencast. I don't know what order you're watching in them, but there's a lot of competition. There's lots of folks pursuing higher education. There's lots of places to do that. And with a resume or CV, I think that last bullet is particularly important. What do you want to do, and how will you stand out from the crowd? It doesn't really matter what route you're going, whether it's a good job with a bachelor's degree in psychology or graduate school in psychology or some other discipline. It's really about how will you and your skill set stand out from others. You can see there's a lot of competition even within psychology. In the last year, we have the data available at the time of this recording. There are over 100,000 graduates, and you can see the trend. That's a positive slope right there. And so we only expect more and more men and women to continue to get their bachelor's degree in psychology. And so you're competing against a growing pool of people. And so, again, having these materials to be accurate and concise and attractive and effective is really to your benefit. You're practicing that here in this class with this assignment. By the way, while we're there, if you already have a resume, good for you. You got a head start. You don't have to start from scratch. By the way, Microsoft, if you go to the Microsoft website, has hundreds of sample templates that you can download. So if you don't have a resume and you are starting from scratch, you don't really have to start from scratch. You can go and download a template and fill it in. All right, so just a kind of a brief overview about graduate school. And so if you are thinking you're going to graduate school, the part of the assignment that really matters to you here would be you'd want to go the CV route, the curriculum vitae. And so I just wanted to kind of share with you, the kind of a broad overview of applying to graduate school, parts of the application process. It's very arduous, quite honestly. You're going to figure out the information, sometimes from websites, sometimes from contact. You're going to prepare materials such as submitting your CV. You're going to have, in addition to a CV, an autobiographical statement. You're going to secure at least 3 strong letters of recommendation. You're going to have to forward your transcripts, which are a document of your grades from Boise State. You may have to take the GRE. That's like the ACT or SAT on steroids. It's the gatekeeper from undergrad to graduate school, just as the gatekeeper from high school to undergrad was the ACT or the SAT for many people. Here it is, the curriculum vitae, or it might be called a resume, and in some cases for some graduate programs, a personal interview. So you can see, as I said earlier, it's an arduous process. It's quite lengthy. Here are some data about graduate admissions. Quite honestly, this is actually a little bit older slide. The most up-to-date information is actually in your textbook, believe it or not. And so, but you can see that clinical programs are very popular. You can see the percentage acceptance in doctoral and master's degrees. You can see sometimes there's not a master's degree version for some programs. And so really the moral of the story here, depending on the program, and depending on the degree that you want, it's a competitive process. Not everyone who wants to go to graduate school can get into graduate school. And so all those things matter. What I mean by all those things, your grades, your autobiographical statement, your research, your interactions with faculty that lead to good letters of recommendation, these things really do matter because there aren't enough, there's more demand than there is supply. If you want to know what gets people into graduate school, there's plenty of research that's been done about that. So the top 5 predictors here on the screen are your GRE scores, graduate record examination scores, your undergraduate GPA, the letters of recommendation, your research experience, and your autobiographical statement. Those 5 things are the top 5 things that are the predictors of successful application to graduate programs in the United States. This is actually a little bit more current than the last slide data, or a couple slides ago. You can see that doctoral degrees and master's degree programs differ a little bit about the importance of those criteria. So for example, letters of recommendation are usually pretty high, but GRE scores may have a different impact. I think research experience is the big one here. Doctoral programs really value research experience more than master's degree programs. And so whether you're going for a master's degree or doctorate degree, if you're going that route, you want to pay attention to the details because there are different things that are valued by different types of programs, even the different type of degree program that you're pursuing. There it is, the GRE. It's administered via computer authorized test centers throughout the nation. It's adaptive test, which means when you're within a section, it gets harder and harder. If it gets easier and easier, you're going to be done soon. If you get X number incorrect, you're bopped out of that section. You go on to the next one. High GRE scores can help offset a low GPA. The reverse is not true. So if your GPA is a little bit on the lower side, and what would be lower? Okay. As a general rule, the bare minimum cutoff for graduate admissions in regard to GPA is 3.0. So if you are close to 3.0 or a little bit under 3.0 and you still want to go to graduate school, I'm not saying that that's an impossibility. What I am saying, though, is that a GRE score could really bolster that. And so if you had a little bit lower GPA, a high GRE score would go, wow, this student knocked it out of the park. However, the reverse is not true. If you have a 4.0 GPA and you score really low in the GREs, graduate admissions committees are going to be scratching their head going, I wonder what happened here. This student looks like a great student GPA-wise, but how come they can't take the GRE well? Okay, so just be aware of that. For better or for worse, that's the criterion under which a lot of graduate admissions are made. And by the way, not every graduate program requires the GRE, and so there are plenty of programs in and out of psychology that don't require the GRE. However, having said that, if you're going to go to law school, it's going to be the law school admissions test, the LSAT. Med school is going to be MCAT, medical college admission test. Business, it's going to be the GMAT, and so there are different graduate management admissions tests, something like that. And so there might be a test in your future if you want to go on for more education beyond your bachelor's degree. This is kind of like what the score would look like. The score report would look like from GRE. There's good data out here, and again, you can pause the video and dig into this. But if you want to go into a master's degree program, what are some of the criteria? GPA, PSYC, GPA, doctoral programs. By the way, the GRE scoring has changed. It's no longer you see these average minimum scores here. It used to be on a scale of 200 to 800. That's changed, and so in fact, if you go back to this, you can see that the scores are going to be anywhere from, I believe, 130 to 170. I believe 170 or 180. And so they used to go from 200 to 800 by 10s. Now they go from 130 to 170 by 1s. And so it's a little bit different, but your score will be your score. Anyway, so this is a little bit of information about what the average minimum scores as well as the median scores are for master's and doctoral programs on these different types of graduate admissions criteria. Transcripts. Your grades do matter, although you can get a good job with less than stellar grades, but you're going to have the skills to show it. In fact, if you want to, go to Google and do a search on an article called How to Get a Job at Google, and you'll have some interesting reading. So GPA does matter sometimes. It's not the be-all and end-all. It's about the overall skill set, but it is part of the picture. It's part of the process. And so undergraduate GPA, when people do these studies, is the single most statistically significant predictor of graduate school GPA, and perhaps more importantly, every C hurts your academic future. I know you're thinking, man, I just got through A&P, I'm not taking that thing again, I got a C minus. You wipe your brow, you go, whew, made it, good for you. That's okay, but you don't want to do that a lot because those C's are dragging down your GPA. C's were two grade points, and the bare minimum most of the time to get into graduate school is the 3.0. And so that's why I say every C hurts your academic future. So just be careful about that. You'll hear people say C's get degrees, and that's true. C's get degrees, but C's typically don't go into graduate school. All right? If that's your goal, you want to keep that in mind. There are going to be materials if you're going to graduate school and you're applying. You're going to be preparing all kinds of materials. Here's a little sample of, I don't even think you can read it, University of Missouri, Kansas City. And the red arrow there is for applicant signature. A lot of it's done online now, but there's still a bunch of graduate schools that do paper applications. And so I've gotten these forms filled out from students, right before the holiday break at the end of the year. And the student goes off and fails to sign it. And I can't sign their name to it. And so I have to try to to contact the student, or I submit it without their signature. And again, it's about paying attention to detail and making sure that you're following instructions. So be sure to follow all the directions. And the thing I tell students from time to time is that if you can't follow the instructions to apply to graduate school, odds are you may not do well in graduate school. Personal statement or an autobiographical statement. Every school will have instructions. You can see I've got an example on the screen here from Arizona State University. So be sure you follow everything exactly correct. So you've got to outline future professional goals in that statement. So make sure that you have future professional goals that you can talk about. And if you don't have those, then you need to generate them if you want to apply to Arizona State. Be sure to follow the word length, follow the instructions exactly. I've shown you different versions of this list in different videos. That's okay, because it's a very vast array of possibilities. These are some careers that require a degree beyond the bachelor's degree in psychology. So these are, if you're going to go the graduate school route, these are careers, so a medical social worker, a cognitive neuroscientist, a sports psychologist, a veterinarian, whether they're psychology directly related or indirectly related. Here's a kind of a sampling of a list of careers where you're going to have to go beyond the bachelor's degree. So, and that's pretty typical, just like other professional degrees. There's more education. You don't become a biology major and then become a physician. You go to med school. You don't become a philosophy major and then be a lawyer. You go to law school. So there's a psychology school, if you will, graduate degree program, if you will, if you want to become a professional psychologist. There are good salary information. This is actually what's in the book, in your textbook. It's actually more up to date than this. But the American Psychological Association, or APA, will become known to you. Does a pretty good job of tracking master's and doctoral recipients in psychology and what they make over the starting salaries as well as over their career. And so here's some nice information about the differences between different settings and different levels of responsibility and what the salary differences are regarding to mean starting salaries. All right, so the PowerPoint up until now has been about the CV and the graduate school route. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the resume route, or getting a good job with your bachelor's degree. So your resume is, and it's similar to the CV in some ways. You're going to make first impressions count. There's different advice out there, quite honestly, about one page only, 1 versus 2 pages. I would say, as a general rule, don't go beyond 2 pages unless the instructions specifically say that's okay, or there's some reason why you really need to do that. Utilize your career center. Make sure you have a bunch of people proofread your resume before you ever show it to anyone. Oh my goodness, that's not the place for typographical errors. That's not the place for mistakes in your resume. So that first impression matters, and you never get a second chance for a good first impression. Keep it current. Make sure you have your phone number, your email address, all those types of contact details. CV, by the way, comes from the Latin, which means academic life. A CV is different, is that there's not a 1 or 2 page limit. The CV actually, generally speaking, the goal is the longer the better, because the resume is a brief employment history. The CV is a chronicle of all things you've done academically. If you're going to follow examples of CVs, do not use faculty examples, use student examples. So for instance, on my CV, because I'm an academic, I have a CV and not a resume. I'm going to have a section called grants and contracts. And so as a student, odds are you're not going to need a section called grants and contracts. So be sure to follow student examples. And by the way, that's one of the great benefits of the textbook, is because I have, from Boise State students, with their permission, reprinted both CV examples for grad school bound students, as well as resume examples for a good job with a bachelor's degree bound students. And so that's a really nice benefit of either Chapter 4 or Chapter 6 in your textbook. Oh, there it is. How about that? So resources for a resume or a CV, Chapter 4 resume or Chapter 6 CV in the psych major. You can see the materials that I posted on Blackboard, those articles that are at the very beginning of the badge information. And you can always go to APA Center for Workforce Studies. There's a link there if you want more information about the graduate level salaries. I will tell you the APA doesn't do a very good job tracking undergraduate salaries in psychology. The organization does that is called NACE. What is that? That's the National Association of Colleges and Employers. They do a great annual salary survey. It's kind of firewalled, so it's hard to get that information, but you might be able to get it through our Boise State Career Center. And sometimes I'm even able to get a hold of it, but I can't even get it all the time. Anyway, I think that's it for this slideshow. I'm going to click back briefly to our Blackboard site. So here's the resume assignment. You've got the assignment instructions, you've got the submission and grading details, and eventually, after this is recorded, I will post the direct link right here. So that's it for the resume CV assignment.